If you've been following the channel for any period of time and watched a variety of what I put out, including video game reviews as well as yapping about other things, you'll know that I occasionally reference the fact that I'm a married father of two, one of each. Well, last year, or beginning of this year, I'm too lazy to look, we finally got an update on Capcom's new IP, Pragmata. This was actually the first I had heard about it, but apparently it had been in the works for several years prior, and it was finally slated to release in 2026, complete with a playable demo. While watching the trailer and some of the coverage of the game prior to the demo coming out, my son and daughter were walking into the living room, and my son saw Diana on screen and told his little sister, "Hey, look, it's you." My daughter stopped dead in her tracks, saw Diana and Hugh both doing stuff, and said, "Oh wow, it is me. And look, it's you too, Dad." Now, I don't think I bear much of a resemblance to Hugh, mainly in that he's taller and better looking than me, and he has a better voice, but I appreciated the comparison. Beyond that, I was already interested in the game from what I had seen already, but after hearing how super stoked my 5-year-old was to see what she thought looked like me and her on screen, I was sold. Whether it turned out to be good or not remained to be seen, but at that point, it just didn't matter to me. I knew she would be excited to watch me play it, and that was enough. Then the demo came out, and despite how short it was, I enjoyed what little bit of content there was. It was certainly a unique spin on the third-person action genre that Capcom had been doing so well over the last decade. All that was left was to bide my time, which fortunately wasn't too bad since there was still a Resident Evil Requiem to play through in the meantime. Didn't review it here on the channel, but solid 9 out of 10, if not a 10 out of 10 title, and probably the most fun I've had with a Resident Evil title in a long time. Not to say I didn't enjoy the other releases like RE7, Village, or the remakes of 2 and 4, because I certainly did, but something about Requiem just felt darn near perfect, so I highly recommend it if you get the chance. After having played Pragmata, and after having my daughter sit with me, watch me play it, and also tell me at times how she thinks I ought to play the game and what to do, what are my thoughts? Well, first off, let's start with the most important part, the gameplay. Pragmata has you take the role of Hugh, an astronaut who arrives on base at the moon along with a few other red shirts to check up on the research who are essentially working with an enormous 3D printer using a substance called lunafilament. It's all very impressive, but things go wrong pretty quickly, and Hugh is separated from the others who are presumably very much dead. Hugh is temporarily knocked out but regains consciousness just in time to see a cute little girl repairing his suit while also realizing that the station's automata are coming to attack them. He soon realizes this little girl is anything but normal as she's able to hack into the automata system, expose its weak points, allowing Hugh to take them down. This is essentially the gameplay in a nutshell. Players target enemies, use the right side controller buttons to navigate the panel to trigger an opening, and then shoot the weak points until the enemies are down, lather, rinse, and repeat for the rest of the game. However, it's not always so easy or the same. Some enemies have much bigger panels, you can get hacking nodes which inflict different status ailments to the enemy, some have danger panels which can cause you to fail a hacking sequence and start over, and all sorts of other tweaks here and there that stop it from getting too repetitive. Oh, and the enemies can still attack you while you're trying to hack them, so you'll frequently need to dodge or shoot while hacking. Standing still in one spot is sometimes a very bad idea, especially in boss fights. I say all that to say this. The battle system in Pragmata is incredibly simple to understand, but that doesn't always mean it's easy or bland. Even though I knew what was expected of each enemy by the time I beat the game, it was never boring. This is actually a major gripe I had with Sea of Stars. The battle system there was also very easy to understand since the game essentially borrowed elements of both Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG liberally, and yet, for some reason, the battle system there just felt sort of stale after a while. I can't really place my finger on why that is, since in both Chrono Trigger and Mario RPG, the battle system is just traditional turn-based combat, except for SMRPG having timed hits and timed blocking, something Sea of Stars did relatively well. Even Chrono Trigger didn't change that much in substance throughout the game, but I think it was the variety of attacks, the variety of combinations, and maybe the fact that I actually cared about the characters more that made a difference. I think Chrono Trigger also did a really good job of giving you that sense of becoming stronger and more powerful as you gained new abilities that made it much more satisfying to play. Now, I realize that I'm comparing classic SNES era RPGs with a third-person action game, but there's a point to all this. Despite how simple Pragmata's system is to understand, there's a very strong sense of progression as you unlock new weapons, mods, and other upgrades that makes it just feel amazing when you're able to take down robots that used to give you trouble as though they were nothing. Upgrades for weapons and items can be found scattered throughout the various zones, and even when you get the ability to use a scanner to show you where everything is, meaning it just shows you there's something in the area, the route to get there isn't always straightforward. There are times when you can't get to a certain upgrade or collectible because you don't have the right equipment yet and have to come back later. Realistically, you won't be able to 100% every area until you unlock Zone 5, but you should be able to get most of them after unlocking a specific upgrade in Zone 2. After that, you should be able to get most upgrades without much hassle, save for a couple of exceptions. First, you're going to need something called Pure Lunum, which is found inside certain storage containers throughout the various zones, some of these being locked behind red zones, which are essentially in-level challenge areas with multiple waves of enemies to defeat. Some are harder than others, but nothing that borders on impossible. The other source of Pure Lunum is going to come from combat simulations. As you progress through the game, you unlock various combat challenges you can take on that will reward you with currency, upgrade materials, or cabin coins, which are used for essentially playing bingo to unlock certain weapons, mods, and cosmetics. This is where the game really tests your mettle. Challenges are ranked between 1 and 5 stars, with only the final challenge being ranked at 5 stars. Each challenge has different tiers of completion, getting 3 stars on a challenge rewarding you with all the rewards. Again, this is going to be a great source of upgrade materials for either your weapons or Hugh and Diana's various stats. On a normal or casual playthrough, it really doesn't matter what you prioritize. Personally, I leveled each category evenly, although your upgrades are capped per zone cleared. So, for example, if you've only beaten Zone 1 and unlocked the first level of your hub, it will only allow you to upgrade your health, weapon, and hacking abilities so far until you clear the next zone. At the end, the max you can upgrade is to level 20. Now, is it necessary to complete all of these challenges? No, but just be aware that on a normal playthrough, even completing these and getting all of the rewards still won't be enough to fully upgrade all of your weapons and stats. You'll need at least one NG Plus playthrough to accomplish that. I didn't finish fully upgrading everything until near the end of Zone 5 on NG Plus. Just know that if you don't do the challenges, it's going to take you more runs than that to get everything. As for the story itself, I loved the interactions between the two characters. Hugh and Diana work really well together, and the game does a good job of showing how that bond between the two grows, and you see Hugh's attitude change over time. Suffice it to say that he begins the game seeing kids as a burden and a drag, but by the end, well, let's just say his attitude, especially towards Diana, changes dramatically. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but there were certain things that began happening after clearing Zone 4 and through the end that indicated where the ending was going to go. I will simply say this: Hugh is a solid character, and he's a good man. That's as much as I'm willing to say about it, but I think the writing set up and paid off the ending very well. I'm also not going to say much about the controversy that was drummed up by a bunch of weirdos online who wanted to cast aspersions on guys who loved the game and spoke of having fatherly instincts kicking in to either protect Diana or just enjoying watching her play with things that you can give her in-game. My daughter is either almost 6 or is 6 years old, depending on when this video gets finished. Is it always fun? Absolutely not. Just this morning, I had to deal with her being a drama queen, giving me attitude, and listening to her and her brother argue while trying to play Super Mario Odyssey together. Unsurprisingly, she isn't good at video games. But my goodness, does she love Tomodachi life. Typical female, am I right, guys? So, yes. There are times I want to spike her milk with Benadryl to get her to pass out for a while and shut up. However, there have been plenty of times where it is exactly like what you see with Diana in Pragmata. There are plenty of times where I've been able to give her something like her Pippa plushie and seen her hug it and almost be in tears of joy over it. There have been many times where my wife and I have done things for her and her brother and get to watch them both have a blast with it or each other, and seeing that joy is awesome. Even though there were times today I wanted to put her in a sleeper hold, she also has very sweet moments where she just wants to sit next to me or just have me put my arm around her. She's both one of the brightest spots in my life, a source of joy and happiness I could never have without being her father, and sometimes a source of frustration, aggravation, and sometimes anger as well. In other words, it's just what you would expect from any relationship you have with another person you live with and are responsible for. I saw a post the other day where some guy was saying how much he wished he could just go back to how life was 20 years ago. I thought about it for a moment and I realized I would never want to do that. Now, would I enjoy being able to time travel for a bit just to revisit certain time periods? Sure, but permanently? Not a chance. 20 years ago, I hadn't met my wife, I wouldn't have the job I have, and I wouldn't have either my son or daughter. Despite how frustrating it can be at times, there's not a bone in my body, not even a scintilla of my being, that would ever wish to undo any of that. My wife and kids are the dearest and most precious people in my life, and I can't imagine my life without any of them, no matter how much we may drive each other crazy at times. So is it all sunshine and rainbows? Not on your life. But the good is what makes it all worth it, and it far outweighs the bad. So if you're one of those people that had any sort of parental instincts feel like they were kicking in, for the love of all that is sacred, embrace that. There are good people out there to date and marry, just mostly not on dating apps, I think. I don't know. I'm not in the dating game anymore and haven't been since 2008, but I still see it happen. Is it easy? No, but relationships are hard work regardless. Just as a side note, I did see people say that if Pragmata was a fatherhood simulator, then Resident Evil Requiem sections with Grace and Emily were the equivalent of a motherhood simulator. I can sort of see that. There was certainly an instinct to see Emily be protected and safe, just like I would want my own daughter to be safe. Not sure how far you want to push the analogy though, since, not to put too fine a point on it, Emily's situation didn't exactly turn out well. Not surprising, given that Grace would have been a single mom, and we know how those statistics usually go, am I right? Delinquency statistics aside, I get the point, and I think both games actually do a great job with the young female characters and making you actually care about them and wanting to see them be okay. Again, as a father, both games hit that male instinct to protect in me, regardless of who the protagonist was. That's not weird, that's normal. If you think it's weird, the only question I have is, what age your father walked out on you? Now, after completing the game, you unlock 3 things: New Game Plus, Unknown Signal Mode, and Lunatic difficulty. NG Plus is your typical fare with being able to start over with all weapons and upgrades from your cleared save file. Unknown Signal adds some more bonus challenges which reward you with money, pure lunum, upgrade materials, and some new hacking mods. 2 weapons it also gives you are the Jackhammer, which is a massive melee damage weapon, and the Limb Cannon, which uses Luna Filament as ammo. These are 2 excellent weapons, especially once you get them fully upgraded. The Limb Cannon is also great for upgrading other items for one reason. Properly timed charge shots can earn you back more Luna Filament than you spent. Once fully upgraded, you could actually run a loop here in the recycling plant and get over 2,000 Luna Filament per run in about 30 seconds. The only thing blocking your progress is the amount of pure Lunum you have on hand and your ability to time your charges. A fully upgraded 3-charge shot would normally cost 1,000 ammo, but if you time it correctly, it reduces that down to 333. So, save your game manually and get some practice learning the timing. Works great on certain bosses too. You could use it on a playthrough and obliterate a lot of things, but I preferred to save the ammo for bosses rather than typical enemies. Just wasn't worth using otherwise. The Riot Blaster and Shockwave Gun, along with either Stasis Module or even Hacking Mines, are more than enough most of the time, especially when fully upgraded. Completing Unknown Signal mode allows you to unlock several other mods, as I said before, as well as unlocking a brief audio stinger after the credits, which may or may not be worth it. Either way, in order to complete this mode, you'll have to take on harder versions of all the bosses. On standard difficulty, this isn't too bad. Honestly, completing Unknown Signal once is all that's needed. I'll come back to this in a minute. Lunatic difficulty is a different beast altogether. You cannot start a New Game Plus run on Lunatic the first time you unlock it. In order to do NG Plus and Lunatic, you have to complete it on a fresh save file. Now, this is going to be a deal breaker for some, and it almost was for me. So, if you play Resident Evil Requiem, you already know that completing certain challenges throughout the game unlocks bonus points which can be used for unlocking all sorts of things in the main campaign, such as different weapons or infinite ammo. When I was going for Platinum on that game, I unlocked infinite ammo for handguns, which included the Requiem, and then used that to earn enough points on my speedrun and other challenges to unlock the Infinite Ammo RPG. All of this before I did a run on Insanity mode. The only thing insane was the insane cackling from just blowing up everything in sight with my rocket launcher and watching what was supposed to be a hard challenge become the easiest hard mode run of any Resident Evil title that I've ever played. After suffering through Village's hardest difficulty and completing that years ago, this was a welcome change of pace. Pragmata has no such thing. If you're going to complete Lunatic, you have to do it from scratch, no upgrades. Now, is Lunatic difficulty actually hard? That sort of depends on the player. You'll recall that I said the combat simulator challenges aren't actually necessary to complete the game. That's true, but if you go through and 3-star every single one of them, except the last one because a no damage run on that is just BS, then you'll be more than prepared for Lunatic. If you've played through Standard and done all the challenges, then Lunatic isn't that bad. Sure, enemies take a little longer to kill and they do more damage, but as long as you're good at dodging and knowing their moves, it's not that bad. On Lunatic, I prioritized a hacking build and upgrading all of Diana's stats before putting upgrades towards my own health or weapon damage. I combined this with mods that helped me rebuild Overdrive after a successful hacking attempt, which then allowed me to use it a little more frequently against bosses. With that and the limb cannon, bosses weren't too much of a struggle. The hard part was avoiding getting hit in some scenarios. Remember, I wasn't upgrading health, so my health was at basically the starting amount, though I think I may have had 1 or 2 points into it just for cushion. Other than that, survival was based almost entirely on dodging and reading attacks. Once I made it to where I could start farming Luna Filament with the limb cannon and then upgrading my weapons, especially the Riot Blaster, and then doing challenges all over again, much easier the second time, the difficulty eased up. Speaking of challenges, it seems like those are the same independent of what difficulty you have it on, so it's not like they're much harder on Lunatic. This also seems to be true of the bonus challenges on Unknown Signal. Now, I did mention that beating Unknown Signal on Standard is really all you need. You can try and do it on Lunatic, and that's a perfectly viable option, but I realized very quickly that I was not about to torture myself with this. If you clear Lunatic and then do New Game Plus using your previously cleared Unknown Signal save from Standard mode, you'll be able to choose Lunatic as a difficulty option. You don't need to clear Unknown Signal on Lunatic in order to choose NG Plus Lunatic from a cleared Unknown Signal save, so long as you've cleared Lunatic difficulty alone. That makes it so much easier since the enhanced bosses in Unknown Signal Lunatic are the epitome of damage sponges. They hit like trucks, far harder than on normal mode, and take forever and a day to chip their health down. For me, that's just not fun anymore. So, after clearing Lunatic, which unlocks infinite ammo by the way across all difficulties and game modes, I went back to standard and then did a speed run to get enough materials to finish maxing out all weapons and character upgrades. Again, maxed out Riot Blaster is amazing for this. That's how I finally finished getting the platinum for the game, and even though there were times Lunatic difficulty pissed me off, it was pretty much always my own fault rather than something cheap the game did. So, do your challenges, get good, and complete Lunatic. It's not that bad. So that's it for me. I had a blast with this game, and my daughter loved watching Diana and Hugh run around because she liked to pretend it was me and her fighting bad guys together. That alone is probably my favorite experience from the game, honestly. Definitely give this one a go and ignore what the weirdos and fatherless people on X and Reddit have to say. Capcom has a great title here and a great new IP. Not sure exactly how they plan on continuing it if they do. If they don't, that's fine. The story is pretty self-contained for the most part, and there isn't much need for a sequel, to be honest. Better to leave it alone than run it into the dirt. And speaking of franchises that have been run into the dirt, now that I'm done with this, I'll probably be finishing up getting the footage I need to do my Legacy of Kain Ascendant story review / diatribe. Still, I wanted to finish getting through Soul Reaver 2 before doing that to make sure all of the lore was fresh in my mind. So that'll be coming someday. Not sure when, but it's in the pipeline. In the meantime, you all take care, and I'll talk to you again.